My name is Karin, and being an uplifter is bringing your gift to the world.
Lovisa is kindness personified, according to a wonderful writer who knows her. She took over Extreme Kids and Crew a few years ago. When things get really hard, she just leads with this openness and quietness that I find so inspiring.
Welcome to the Uplifters podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lovisa Brown, who you just heard introduced by Eliza Factor. Eliza is the founder of Extreme Kids and Crew. Lovisa is the new-ish executive director of that organization. I asked Lovisa what we might learn from her, and she said we all live on fragile margins, whether it's related to race, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. How can we push our hearts and expand to create brave spaces for others to learn about us and our clumsiness? In this time of division and difference, I'm excited to talk to Lovisa about how she creates trust, how she nurtures hearts and expands spaces so that we can all clumsily come back together. Because to me, that's our job as uplifters in the end.
For sure.
It's not to create more divisions.
I'm going to credit you. You and I started this kind of clumsily, right? But we gave each other space to be clumsy and to be vulnerable. I think I started off saying, "Ooh, I should have warned you. Like, I'm just not good at this stuff." And I felt safe and brave, right? Like you created a brave space for me to say, clumsily or not, that I was nervous, even to say that I'm nervous, right? And hopefully kind of mirroring that back for you too. Like, this is new for both of us. How do we get this together? Okay, now we're here, right? So I think it's modeling it, and it's, giving yourself permission to be transparent, even when you're scared. I push myself to do that all the time.
And I think that takes a lot of courage to push ourselves to continued trust and vulnerability, right? Because I think when we get scared, we tend to put up the walls, put up the dividers, and put ourselves in a nice little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels safe in there, and yet it's so limiting. What makes you so passionate about, I don't really want to say breaking down the bubbles, because that actually sounds more violent.
Yeah.
And divisive, but it's like opening the bubbles.
Yeah.
Coming out of the bubbles and choosing to, I don't know whether it's walk into other people's bubbles or just see what happens if we give ourselves the bubbleless space.
Yeah. I mean, I think you know what it feels like when somebody has done that for you. And so as often as I can, I try to do that. And then I do think it's a gift. It's an exchange, right? Where, I had a hard conversation with someone last night, and I just said, instead of kind of protecting myself, I just said, this is how I feel, but I want you to know I'm here for you, right? My husband and I have been married for 20 years. And there was a situation where it felt a little disrespectful in terms of our time. And I wanted her to hear that, but I also wanted her to hear that I'm here for you, right? And to allow us both to do what's right for us in this season. It could just be a season, right? But also, I was more concerned about her knowing that I was there and that this wasn't a form of rejection, but this was me saying that situation wasn't good for us, wasn't good for me, and here's why. But I also want you to know I want to continue in the relationship. So I think it's about, to be honest, I prayed about it before because I just wanted to be sure that I was going to present well and that she heard from my heart first, and then I could say what I needed to say. I think it's about being brave, but I also think, God, it's important. So that's why I try to push back on the word safe, just because, safety, I can't guarantee my words are going to be safe, right? But I can guarantee that I'm going to do the best I can to create a brave space for you, right?
I love this so much, Lovisa. I think about courage a lot. I created the Uplifters because I believe that we become more courageous through hearing others' courage. And it gives us proof points and evidence that we can be courageous. And so then we wade our way in one step, one practice at a time into being our bravest selves. Through my experience and my work, I find that courageous conversation is probably the most important and scariest part of courage building.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially for nice people.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you, what does that mean?
Well, I think so many of us were raised to be polite and kind and nice.
100%. Yep.
And to avoid any friction. And then we got that all mixed up. And so we stopped saying the truth.
Yeah.
And we just started lying our way through lives and then not knowing why nobody understood us or they disrespected us or we didn't feel seen or known or have deep connection.
Especially girls, right? Especially girls.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the things that really attracts me to the work that we're doing at Extreme Kids is that we've really made an intentional effort to focus on girls because girls mask. Boys are always identified in terms of their disabilities, but girls, it's harder. I mean, sometimes girls aren't identified till they're adults because we mask well, right? And we mask well because society tells us that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to show anger. We're supposed to be friends with everybody. And I think it really does take courage to be able to say to someone, that didn't feel good and that wasn't okay. And I still like you, right? Like you're not canceling someone just because you don't like something. And I'm not even trying to be political with you, but I just saw this morning Coach Waltz, right? His speech and his son, his high school son. Did you see it?
I'm going to cry again.
Bawling. He was just bawling. And I just started crying watching him, right? And I thought, what did he tell us about the man that could be our vice president? What did he say about him, right? Just the action that he's on national TV and bawling, not looking embarrassed, not looking scared, not looking ashamed, but looking proud and loving his dad. I was like, wow.
That moment where he's like, that's my dad.
I know, right? Like, I was just like, yeah, I was just, oh gosh. Like I had to pause it and then start again just because it hits you, right? And it's like, talk about a brave space that has been developed for him to be able to do that. That's exciting. I want that for all of the kids that are at EKC as well, right? I want to create brave spaces where they get to have community, where they get to be with people that are like them. They get to nerd out on rock band music or art or whatever. I love that. And when you see that, or I just think they're teaching us, right? Like when you see their vulnerability, in one of our groups, we had a group of kids that were Spanish speakers that didn't know English, and our staff person speaks Spanish. And so she would have conversations with both groups. And then after a while, you heard the non-Spanish speaking kids say, hey, you should put all of the signs in our room in Spanish and in English. And so usually she'd put the signs, they were all in English, and then she'd translate. And she and I both almost started crying when that's what we want. We want an inclusive world where people are looking out for each other.
And what that took is them seeing past their own immediate needs and recognizing someone else's.
We have rock band. It's with the Brooklyn Conservatory. I was trying to expand the program, and I was saying, one of the main reasons I want to expand our program is because our kids have such a great community. And that I know that if another child comes in, they're going to be loved and they're going to be welcomed and people are going to embrace them. And I just thought, that's what I want our kids to walk into, right? And not have people stare at them or make them feel uncomfortable, but to say, hey, what's your name? And just ask all the regular questions you ask a new person. I said, the reason I want to expand is because I want other kids to experience what this group has already developed, which is a wonderful, brave space.
Kids tend to be pretty wrapped in their own experience. And so there's something really special happening there.
Yeah.
If these kids are looking out for each other. What do you think these teachers are doing to help these kids see other kids' experiences?
I think we have to experience it for ourselves. That's what gives us the courage to kind of create it or want it for someone else. But I think what they receive from our staff is a welcoming, brave space, so that when you're having difficulties, that someone isn't saying to you, stop the meltdown, but they're sitting next to you and saying, hey, what's going on? right? They're having a conversation with you and they're not acting as if you can control that, right? They're sitting there saying, hey, what's going on? And wanting to know what just happened, right? Or what is happening inside of your body right now. And I think not having to mask that is powerful. Not having to pretend that something's not happening inside of you, but being able to let it out and knowing that there are people that are in that environment that aren't going to freak out, that are going to sit down next to you and say, okay, hey, what's going on? One of the youth in our program was having a difficult time, and staff stopped what we were doing and just kind of went and sat next to them and said, hey, what's going on? Talk to me about your feelings. What just happened? And they couldn't say it. They were having a real difficult time. They were reacting to something, but we weren't sure what it was. And we were fortunate that we had a neurodivergent teen that was an intern with us. And she said, it might be the lights. And then we turned the lights down and it instantly stopped. And you're just thinking, how fortunate were we that we had her as an intern, right? And for me, that's just a whole thing about the importance of diversity in a group. You just don't know what skills people bring. You don't know what they know that you don't know. And there were all these adults and none of us knew, but she knew, right? And she got listened to. Not just that she knew, but that she said it and somebody responded. And so that was an opportunity to build her as well, that she had the answers. So I wasn't there when it happened, but everyone told me. And I was so excited to say to her in a group, we were so lucky to have you, that you were there that day because you really made a difference. And that's important. All of us want to hear that.
What I'm hearing happening over and over again in these stories is what I dub acknowledge and validate. When I'm talking to anyone about courageous conversation, that's where we always begin. You're sharing your feeling and your felt experience of something as you've described. And you're starting with acknowledging and validating this other person's feelings and reality, right? Because their reality is their reality and your reality is your reality.
Yeah. And, especially in specific to that teen, that isn't my reality. And so I would not have said the lights, right? I was thinking, did somebody poke them and we didn't see it? It couldn't even imagine, right? But she knew because that's her reality, right? So it's pretty powerful.
It is pretty powerful. I think too, acknowledging our individual superpowers.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's so energizing as a human to feel seen in that way. Yet so often those have been seen in other rooms as threats or weirdness or, right, something to hide. And so that's what we've done.
Yeah.
And so by validating that, you're saying, no, actually, this is a space where we get to honor our superpowers.
Yeah. And I love that you call it a superpower. And I'm definitely I'm going to take that. On my LinkedIn right now, I saw this story on Instagram where this woman was talking to parents. Please tell your kids about my kids, about my kid, right? Did you see that one? I saw it and I thought, I want everyone to see this, right? I think how many parents want to say that, to scream at the top of their lungs to all of the students in their children's classroom, just say hi, just say hi. It really is that simple. If that's a new world or if that's something different for you, I get how that's scared and that you think that by looking away that you're actually honoring and being respectful, but it's not. And I think that enough parents don't know that when you look away that people see you looking away, or when you think that you're whispering, don't stare, that people hear you. And so I love that this parent just said, tell your kids about my kid and just let them say hi, right? So, yeah, I think it's so important. And so one of the things I love is when our programs are in public spaces, right? Because I think that's what makes the difference. I think it's really easy for you to say, oh, I don't know anybody like that, or I'm not around anybody like that. But when we're in your space and it becomes our space, then you don't get to say you don't know us or you haven't seen us, right? Because we're sharing a space together. So I'm super excited every time we are able to, don't want to use the word invade, but it is kind of a little bit of an invasion at the beginning. And hopefully after a while, it's a shared space, right? And you'll be used to seeing us in that space and wonder where we are when you don't.
Oh, yeah. So for those folks who didn't hear Eliza's episode or, have slept since then, just tell us a little bit about Extreme Kids and Crew.
It was founded by Eliza Factor, a mom who wanted to create or to have a space for herself and for her son, Felix, that allowed them to have community, to be in a space with other families that were like their family that weren't doctor offices, right? Our organization's based on play. We're in Dungeons and Dragons spaces. We're at the Brooklyn Conservatory. We're at libraries doing anime clubs, maker girl clubs, and we're in public spaces and we're creating play. We're creating a good social emotional environment through play because we're based at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. Once a month, we do a family gathering on their rooftop and we invite other neurodivergent families to join us. So then now you're in a space with other families that are like yours, that understand if you're having a hard time with your child, no one's staring at you because they all get it. And you're able to talk to people about where do you go to the dentist and how do you do blah, blah, blah. And so there's a networking that happens organically and there's friendships that are developed. It's lovely.
We talked a little about superpowers. What are your superpowers, Lovisa?
Being transparent. I really think that helps a lot in situations. Saying that I'm scared, asking a question, hopefully creating a brave space for someone else to be transparent or to be vulnerable or to share. So I work on that a lot. I want people to know me, even though I'm scared for people to know me, if I'm honest about that.
And as a leader, that is especially impactful.
Yeah.
Because we are given a model of leadership that's know-it-all.
Yeah.
And there's a belief that you're more powerful, you're more respected. But I think you seem to be taking a very different approach to leadership.
Yeah. Because the truth is it's not true and it's exhausting, right? Who wants to know it all? Who does know it all? You just can't. It's exhausting. Or even the whole my way or not, that's also exhausting. You're not the only smart person in the room. There's some really creative people that you're working with. Let them shine, right? So yeah, that the other way that you were describing, it's exhausting. And I've been the other way. It's exhausting. So yeah, this is just so much more life affirming. And there are times that transparency bites you in the butt and you get your feelings hurt, but a majority of the time you don't. And so when I remind myself, okay, this didn't work out this time, it's okay because a majority of the time it does. And you just see to be honest, I feel like I see it in my staff, the way they treat each other, the way they treat our kids, the way we treat our families. It works.
You say, like so many of us, and I so appreciate your honesty there. You say, I've been the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So what started this transition for you into a more brave style of leadership?
It probably is me seeing it somewhere, right? I don't know, Brene Brown's vulnerability TED Talk. I think probably seeing it and playing around with it and seeing the results and thinking, God, this really works. I like it.
You said, I saw that it works. We're given a lot of evidence that the other way works.
Are we?
I mean,
are we?
And that we're told, right? A lot.
Yeah.
We're shown in hundreds of movies. That's what works. And so if we're going to create a new paradigm, which I think is what you're describing here, then we have to look for the evidence of what's true for us. It sounds like you're sort of consolidating your evidence and you're like, this is going well. I'm going to keep going down that path. And so what are some of those proof points that you see to sort of let us see the impact?
I so appreciate someone saying, my mom's in the hospital and I'm here, but I just want you to know that I might get a call. It's good to be able to say, should you be here? Right? Like, should you be here? And please hear me say, your family, and I say this all the time, family's number one. It just is. When my husband's father was dying, I said the same thing to him. He lived across the country. Where do you want to be? Because if you want to be there, we will fly you back every week. We will eat ramen, do whatever it takes. Because that opportunity comes once, right? It comes once. And you have to know where you want to be. I said it to staff, you never want to be at work. I never want you to be at work. I've had conversations with board members where I'm like crying. And I've said to one of them, my gosh, I cry every time I talk to you. And she said, oh, it's because you feel safe. I'm thinking in my head, no, brave. I do feel like I can just be brave and say I'm scared or I don't know what I'm doing or whatever, right? So, yeah, it works, right? I think it just works. And so I think, and when it doesn't, it's so few times that it doesn't. When it doesn't, you also know that it comes from a place from people that are believing the other thing that you and I were just talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're not supposed to be vulnerable because it makes you look weak. And I'm okay being weak looking.
One of our recent guests said that she grew up believing power was muscular. And now she believes power is soft. And it comes in many forms.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear here, is that we can be honest and vulnerable and create ease.
Yeah.
And trust and acceptance, which is a whole heck of a lot less exhausting and requires ultimately a lot less energy.
I don't even know why people buy into the other way. It is exhausting. It is exhausting. And I think what you just said is really important as well in terms of power looks different. Like we have a person that works with us, Christina, and I think that I think that people might see her and not think that she's powerful. And we changed her title because I said, oh no, you're a leader, right? It just looks different on you, but she's a leader. Her actions are leading, the way that she thinks through things. I was asking her about why somebody did something. She said, I try not to assume anything, Lovisa. And I just was like floored, right? I was like, oh, right. That was the right answer.
So much of this is about non-judgment and acceptance in this time where things do feel so divided. And it seems like we're constantly being forced to pick teams.
Yeah.
What do you think we can learn from your story to help us be bravely connected?
Gus, Waltz, right? It doesn't matter what side of the team you're on. You get that. You get that that is a kid that loves his dad. You get that that's a kid that's well loved, right? It doesn't matter what side. So it's like, look for your commonalities, right? I started off saying, well, I'm not sure where your politics are, but I thought, you know what? That kid was amazing because none of us agree on anything 100%. I've been married for a lot of years. We don't. And it's like, what are those things that we have in common that we get to celebrate together? I want our kids to think about the things that they get to nerd out. Like, that's what I think is really cool, that our kids get to nerd out on the same thing. And they probably don't know anything else outside of what they know in that space together, but they might not know how somebody else lives, the foods that they eat, the faith that they have or don't have. But in that space for that hour, we're together, we're the same. And I think it's that.
You're so right. My best friend growing up and we vote complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Like from an organized religion standpoint, we are a complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
We live on opposite ends of the country. Our families look very different. And yet we are the same person. And we are deep soul sisters. And weirdly, we agree on everything.
I love that.
Because our hearts are the same. And the thing that connected us when we were 12 still connects us. And our values are the same, as weird as that is.
I love that, though.
But it's true.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think we can love people who are very different than us and find similarities in that.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful to have that in my life because it also helps me not demonize the people who are different from me.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Because that's tempting sometimes when I'm like, how could you believe that thing that seems so anathema to me?
That's what breaks the walls down. And so, yeah, and that's why I like us being in public spaces. Because once you see us and see our excitement about the same thing, we're nerding out on games the way you're nerding out on games, right? And then it's like, oh, I didn't think they even knew games. And it's like, no, we're like into this game. We like Dungeons and Dragons too, right? So yeah, I love that. And it helps you now. The next time you see someone, you're going to go, okay.
Thank you. You're reminding me too. I was like, where have I had this conversation before? And I just realized, and I don't know what this means, but I just realized that this conversation we had about children with differences whether it be neurodiversity or physical differences or both, we're having a very similar conversation as we had about the homeless and unhoused population with one of our early guests, and still probably one of the most important episodes we've ever done, with Lisa Halverstad. And we talked about not passing by people on the street and pretending they didn't exist, but acknowledging our shared humanity. And so to me, this just feels so full circle right now. If that's the lesson, right? For the people with the least, or the people who are struggling the most with mental illness or with physical differences, or people who are on the opposite end of the political divide from us. If what this is all about ultimately is just being human together.
Yeah. I mean, there's a homeless woman that stays downstairs. We know her name. So we go, hey, Denise. I know what her flavor chapstick is. We know what she wants from the bodega. Sometimes we buy her meal. She didn't realize my husband and I were married, so she was calling my husband her boyfriend until I said, hey, I heard my husband's your boyfriend, right? But I mean, it is that, right? Like, I try not to buy food unless I ask your name, right? Because I want to know who you are. I want to be able to look you in the face and say hi.
It makes a huge difference in how we perceive the world too. It's not just about the other person. It's about us feeling at ease in the world too, that we're not constantly at war with everyone who is different or in fear of everyone who is different.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you look into the eyes of that person, suddenly they're not so scary.
And our kids are kids.
Yeah.
They're not someone you need to look away from. They're kids, right? Yeah. Just say hi.
I think that is one of the most profound and simple lessons in life.
Yeah.
Hi, Lovisa.
You're so funny.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I have to thank Eliza. I was scared when she did that, but I was like, all right.
We can do scary things.
I know. I had to say to myself, you can do hard things. Same thing I say to kids, right? I can do hard things.
Yeah. And every time we do it, I talk about it as loading, because I heard about that's what they're doing in physical therapy now. Like, they're to heal tendons, they're loading the tendon with more resistance, so that the tendon can heal more deeply.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
And so we're just loading our fear and courage a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And superpower. I love that. I'm taking it.
Thank you. I'm taking you with me too. Thank you, Lovisa.
You're welcome. Thanks for making this easy. Yeah. Thanks for creating the space for me to be brave.
Thank you for listening to the Uplifters podcast. If you're getting a boost from these episodes, please share them with the uplifters in your life, and then join us in conversation over at theuplifterspodcast.com. Head over to Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, and follow, and rate our show. It'll really help us connect with more uplifters, and it'll ensure you never miss one of these beautiful stories. Mwah! Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up, whoa. Lift you up. Beautiful.
I cried. It's that little thing you did with your voice.
Right, in the pre-chorus, right?
I was like...
Mommy,
I had to cry quietly.
Mommy, stop crying. You're disturbing the peace.